It's time to tell the truth. The truth about Stacy. That's right. Babysitter's Club Series number 3 by Anna Martin. I'm Micah Allen. Welcome back to this, the premiere video of BSC and Chill 2021. New year, same books, same me, new president, new boss, same as the old boss. We're just gonna have to wait and see. He's not the same as the old boss. But yeah, I mean, let's just push things forward, folks. As far as politics and all of that is concerned, let's recognize that this is a new century, a new millennium. 20th century bullshit is not going to work anymore. Enough said. 20th century bullshit, however, is very at home here in our book about a diabetic 13-year-old from 1986. But we'll get to that. Beginning in medias res this time, our author begins with a line of dialogue, which I have heard is a no-no for serious authors, but I myself, as an author of middling seriousness, tend to find it to be a really useful way to just dive into a scene and grip the readers by the lapels and say, look, something to be interested by. For example, as president of the Babysitters Club, said Christy Thomas, I hereby move that we figure out what to do when Mrs. Newton goes to the hospital to have her baby. What do you mean? I said. Well, we ought to be prepared. We've been waiting for this baby for months, and the Newtons are practically our best clients. They'll need someone to take care of Jamie while his parents are at the hospital, and smart babysitters would be ready for that occasion. I think that's a good idea, spoke up Marianne Spear. I second the motion. Marianne usually agrees with Christy. After all, they're best friends. I glanced across the room at Claudia Kishi. Claudia is my best friend and vice president of our club. She shrugged her shoulders at me. There are just 4 of us in the Babysitters Club. Christy, Claudia, Marianne, she's the secretary, and me, Stacy McGill. I'm the treasurer. We've been in business for about 2 months. Christy thought up the club, which is why she got to be president. We meet 3 times a week from 5:30 to 6 o'clock in Claudia's room. Claudia has a private phone. And our clients call them up to line up babysitters. Or something to that effect. The reason the club works so well is that with 4 babysitters there at the phone, each person who calls is pretty much guaranteed to get a sitter for whatever time he or she needs. Or to them. Our clients like that. They say that having to make a whole bunch of calls just to line up one sitter is a waste of time. They like us too. We're good babysitters, and we worked hard to get our business going. We printed up flyers and distributed them in mailboxes and even put an ad in the Stony Brook News, the voice of Stony Brook, Connecticut. That's where I live now, in this teeny-weeny town in Connecticut. Let me tell you, it's quite a shock after life in New York City. New York is a big place. Stony Brook is not. There is only one middle school here, and I go to it. We all do. We're in 7th grade. In New York, there are about 1 billion middle schools. In fact, in New York, there are about 1 billion of everything. People, cars, buildings, stores, pigeons, friends, and things to do. Here, there as well, there's not much, really. My parents and I moved into our house in August, and I didn't make a single friend until I met Claudia in school in September. Everyone here seems to have known everyone else since they were babies. Claudia, Christy, and Mary Ann have, and they've grown up together since Christy and Mary Ann live next to each other on Bradford Court, and Claudia lives across the street from them. I live 2 streets away. So was I ever glad when Christy told me that Claudia wanted to start the club. Reverse those names and you'll get the picture. Friends at last, I thought, and that's just what I found. Even though I'm better friends with Claudia, I don't know what I'd do without Christy and Mary Ann. It's true that they seem younger than Claudia and me. They don't care much about boys or clothes yet, although Christy did just go to her first dance. And Mary Ann is unbelievably shy. And Christy's sort of a girl who doesn't wear dresses and likes to play sports, which, hey, more power to anyone with those interests. Not gonna call him a tomboy, that's one word we don't like here at BSC and Chill, but they're my friends and I belong with them, which is more than I can say about certain traitors I left behind in New York. A little bit of intrigue. Planting a seed of interest there, are we, Ms. Martin? Well done, well done. There's already some cool stuff going on here. Readers of this book might recall that Stacy had a traumatic experience in New York where her friends basically bullied the living shit out of her for having diabetes. It's incredibly fucked up. So no wonder she's fixated on who's best friends with whom. Calling someone her best friend who she's known for all of 2 months seems a little unbounded to me, but the reality is that Stacy's dealing with some, like, pretty serious, shitty experiences of recent life. As we go further into this, I'm really interested in Stacy's parents. I have a feeling Stacy is the babysitter who, like, materially everything is hunky fucking dory, and yet she's the one whose parents, like, simply shouldn't have reproduced. I think her parents have, like, less than no idea of what to do with their own lives, let alone with the life of a child. Like, these are the parents whose shame about their own daughter's diabetes led them to give their daughter, like, a host of serious hang-ups about it. It's really fucked up. We remember. Go back and watch. It's mostly in book 1, I think, that we talk about the diabetes on this series. But it's, yeah, her parents. Out to lunch, folks. Out to permanent lunch. All right. Christy was saying something. Here's one plan. It's a school afternoon. Mrs. Newton realizes that it's time to go to the hospital. She calls Mr. Newton or a cab or whatever, and then she calls us, and one of us goes to stay with Jamie. Well, what if we're all busy? I asked. Said Christy. We do have very busy schedules, so I suppose maybe from now on one of us should be free each afternoon, so Mrs. Newton will be guaranteed to have a babysitter. It will be a special service for her, since the Newtons are such good customers. That seems like kind of a waste, spoke up Claudia, which was exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, that's right, I said. Babies can be late, 2 or 3 weeks late. We could be giving up an awful lot of perfectly good afternoons for nothing, not to mention a lot of perfectly good money. That's true, said Christy thoughtfully. How about a nighttime plan? I suggested, sophisticatedly. Doesn't it seem that pregnant women always rush off to the hospital in the middle of the night? I was born at 2:22 a.m. I was born at 4:36 a.m., said Claudia. I was born at 4 a.m. on the dot, said Christy. We looked at Mary Ann. She shrugged. I don't know what time I was born. Marian's mother died when Marian was little, and Marian is not very close to her strict father. It figures that they'd never talk about the day or night that she was born. That's so sad. Did you watch the BSC Netflix show? It's outstanding, and they do basically everything, like, perfectly on that show, but one of the things I was most impressed by was they do such a good job casting Marian's father. He's an actor who, I think he's from the Upright Citizen Brigade. He's not at all who I would have thought would be that type of guy. But, like, by which I mean this draconian, like, grieving jerk. But the way he is able to communicate, like, love through uptight concern is, like, really, really sweet. And it got me to think differently. I had pictured reading these books. Like, I pictured a man who was old enough to be Mary Ann's grandfather as her father. Like, back in the day, it was a strange conjuring I did. A knock came on Claudia's door. Mimi, her grandmother, stuck her head in the room. Hello, girls, said Mimi politely. Hi, Mimi, we answered. May I offer any of you something to eat? She asked. Claudia's family's Japanese, and Mimi, who didn't come to the United States until she was 32 years old, speaks with a gentle, rolling accent. She's lived with Claudia's family since before Claudia was born. No thanks, Mimi, replied Claudia, but maybe you could help us. Certainly. Mimi opened the door the rest of the way and stood just inside the room. Do you know what time Marianne was born? Claudia asked. She figured Mimi would know, since Claudia's parents had been friendly with the Thomases and the Spears for years, and Mimi had gotten to know their families too. Mimi only looked slightly taken aback. Let me think for a moment, my Claudia. Marianne, your mother and father left for the hospital around dinner time. That I remember clearly. I believe you were born near 11 o'clock. Oh! A grin lit up Marianne's face. I didn't know. So I was another nighttime baby. Thank you for unwittingly proving the point we were all just making for one another. Mimi? It was my pleasure, said Mimi, turning to leave, and she almost bumped into Janine, Claudia's sister, who had come up behind her. Claudia! Claudia! Cried Janine. I looked up in alarm. Janine's this prim, not much fun 15-year-old who's a bona fide genius. Wow, we don't even get her, I guess Anna Martin's done making a big deal about Janine's IQ, so we don't get the IQ number here. How refreshing. To be honest, Janine's boring, according to this narrator. Janine's not boring at all. She's great. Dull as dishwater, not. I'd never even heard her raise her voice, which is why the minute I heard her cry, Claudia, I knew something was wrong. Very wrong. And unfortunately, for the Babysitters Club, I was right. But fortunately for the readers of this book, Janine was bringing perhaps the most entertaining aspect of the entire thing to the table. It's this. Janine was waving a paper around. She squeezed past Mimi and thrust it at Claudia. Claudia took it, and Christy, Marianne, and I crowded around. We stared at the paper in horror. This is what we saw. Need a reliable babysitter? Need one fast? Then call the Babysitters Agency. Liz Lewis 5551162 or Michelle Patterson 5557548 and reach a whole network of responsible babysitters. Ages 13 and up, available after school, weekends until midnight, weeknights until 11. Low rates, years of experience, the ultimate time saver. Call now. The four of us just looked at each other, speechless with concern and chagrin and scandalized feelings. Even Christy, who has sort of a big mouth, couldn't say anything. Mary Ann's eyes grew so wide that I thought they'd pop right out of her skull. What is wrong, my Claudia? Asked Mimi. Competition, Claudia replied stiffly. Christy checked her watch and saw that it was only 5:45 and that we still had 15 minutes left to our Friday meeting. I hereby change this meeting of the Babysitters Club to an emergency meeting, she announced. We will leave you alone then, said Mimi softly. Janine, please, help me with dinner. Mimi tiptoed out, followed by Janine, who closed the door softly behind her. I looked at my three stricken friends, and I wonder whether there was a glance between Mimi and Janine there as if to be like, I wonder if they're like, Jesus Christ, how serious, or whether they're like, I wonder what the 13-year-olds are up to. Let's go make dinner and have our private relationship together. I like to think it's option 2. Not that competition for their club isn't like, I understand why the girls would be pissed off and hurt by that and like upset overall. It's fucking, yeah, it's insulting and a ripoff. But the inner world of Mimi and Janine, surely Mimi, being the gifted grandmother and generally awesome human being that she is, would have just as rich and wonderful a relationship with Janine, her eldest granddaughter, as she would with Claudia, her youngest granddaughter. I looked at my three stricken friends, and Claudia's dark eyes were troubled. She was absent-mindedly playing with a strand of her long black hair. Claudia is very fashion conscious and always dresses in the absolute latest trendy clothes, but I could tell that clothes were the last thing on her mind, and thus we, the reader, are cruelly denied a description of Claudia's current outfit. But we've got more important matters to attend to, like Christy, wearing her typical little girl clothes. Her brown hair pulled back into a messy ponytail looked as troubled as Claudia did. Marianne, her hair in braids as usual, her father makes her wear that way, had put on her wire-rimmed glasses to read the flyer. When she was finished, she sighed, leaned back against the wall, and kicked off her penny loafers. Marianne, being the most grown-up and ahead of everybody, is like, you can tell this reaction here. She's like, oh, it's finally happened, only a matter of time. Didn't want to jinx things by saying, hey girl, sooner or later we're going to have a little competition because our idea is just too good for somebody not to copy. But she was too nice to say that out loud, so now she's like, fuck, here we are. And so it has come to pass. If I could have looked at myself, I would have seen a second trendy dresser and a fourth long face, more sophisticated than Christie's or Mary Ann's, but not nearly as beautiful as Claudia's. Oh, Stacy, get over yourself / be nicer to yourself. I examined a pink painted nail while Christy held the dreadful flyer in her shaking hand. Nice sentence. We're dead, she said to no one in particular. The other babysitters are older than we are. Ageist as ever, Christy. They can stay out later than we can. We're doomed. Not one of us disagreed with her. In nervous desperation, Claudia took a shoebox from under her bed, reached in, and pulled out a roll of lifesavers. Claudia is a junk food junkie, although she won't admit it, and she has candy and snacks stashed all around her bedroom, along with the Nancy Drew books her parents disapprove of because they think they're not quality reading. She was so upset about the babysitter's agency that when she was passing around the lifesavers, she forgot and offered me a piece. I'm diabetic and absolutely not allowed to eat extra sweets. I used to try to keep my illness a secret from people because my parents are weird freaks. But Claudia, Mary Ann, and Christy know about it, and they don't usually offer me candy. Who are Liz Lewis and Michelle Patterson? Asked Mary Ann, peering over to look at the flyer again. I shrugged. I barely knew the kids in my homeroom, let alone in any other grade. Maybe they don't go to the middle school, suggested Christy. It says the babysitters are 13 and up, so Liz and Michelle probably go to the high school. I wonder if Sam or Charlie knows them. Charlie and Sam are Christy's older brothers. They're 16 and 14. She has a little brother, too, David Michael, who's 6. No, they go to Stony Brook Middle School, spoke up Claudia in a tone of voice that indicated she was likely to expire in a few seconds. Let's try that again. No, they go to Stony Brook Middle School. They're 8th graders. They must be pretty friendly with the high school kids, I said, unless there are a whole bunch of really old 8th graders that we don't know about. Claudia snorted. For all I know, there are. Liz and Michelle could be 14 or 15. I wish you guys knew who they are. You'd faint. Those two aren't babysitters any more than I'm the Queen of France. What's wrong with them? I asked. For one thing, I wouldn't trust them farther than I could throw a truck, said Claudia. They have smart mouths, they sass the teachers, they hate school, they hang around the mall, you know, that kind of kid. It doesn't mean they're not good babysitters, said Marianne. Well, I'd be surprised if they were, said Claudia. I wonder how the agency works, mused Christy. She was still holding the flyer. There are only 2 names on this, but it says you can get in touch with a whole network of responsible babysitters, and I quote, I'll say one thing, Liz and Michelle know how to go after customers. Their flyer's a lot better than ours was. Humph, I said. Hey, cried Marianne, I have an idea. Let's call the agency and pretend we need a sitter. Maybe we can find out how those girls operate. Marianne may be shy, but she sure can come up with some daring ideas. Oh, that's smart, said Christy approvingly. Prank calls run in Christy's family, so this is right up her alley. I'll make up a name and say I need a babysitter for my younger brother. Then I can call him back later and cancel. Okay, Claudia and I agreed. Competition. Are you ready? Christy asked the phone. Here comes the Babysitters Club. Yay! I made it through a whole chapter without getting too self-conscious and stopping. I don't know, I was having trouble just like finding the fucking tone here, folks, but I'm back on my game and it's a nice feeling. Really, I have a feeling if this book had been like number 45, it would have been called like Stacy versus the Babysitters Club Agency or something, because the best part of this book really is the Babysitters Club Agency, or you know what I mean, their competition, the older girls trying to fuck with them. There is some other cool stuff about Stacy, I think. I haven't read, I flipped through and I saw some stuff about the Babysitters Agency, so I know they're in there somewhere. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Stick around for more chapters, more videos, more BSC, and chill.